Welcome to Deer Head Studios. This is 40 Below Zero, an international podcast about living with multiple sclerosis. I'm your co-host, Nick, and with me as always is my good friend, Terry. We're so glad all of our fellow MS warriors and supporters are here with us, so let's get into it. Terry, my friend, we are back in the studio. Who do we have with us this week? I am very excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too. Thank you, Nick. I'm so excited to introduce our special guest today from the podcast Tripping on Air. We got Ardra Shephard and Alex Hajjar. Thank you so much for joining Nick and I. How are you guys doing today?
I'm good. Super happy to be here. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, this is very cool. Thank you.
Ardra, I run a various support groups out there. I participate, I facilitate them with Nick. And your podcast is probably the most talked about. Other than obvious motivation and why you started the Tripping on Air, tell us, how did the dynamic duo start between you and Alex?
Yeah, it's interesting. So long before I started the podcast, I'm really a writer. So I have a blog by the same title, Tripping on Air, which has been around since 2015. I can hardly believe it, but I've got over 100 essays on there. And AMI approached me about doing a podcast. And at first I was hesitant because I was like, oh my God, everyone has a podcast. And actually there are a lot of MS podcasts out there and a lot of really good ones. So I wondered what I could do differently that would add to the space instead of sort of replicating it. So, I wanted to bring I wanted to bring the same authenticity that I bring to the blog, but I thought it would be really cool to have a co-host who has a partner with MS to just sort of get that perspective. And also, it's nice to work with a co-host and just to have somebody to bounce ideas off of. So I didn't know Alex all that well, but I do tend to make impulsive decisions. I feel like this was one that I'm very glad worked out favorably because it was like a little bit of a shot in the dark. I had been a guest on Alex's podcast and I love the sound of his voice. He's a really good interviewer. And he has this niche knowledge, and we just, used to just sort of have chemistry and you click with somebody. And so that's how that came to be.
Yeah. And we're both like extroverts. So, which is funny because both of our partners tend to be more introverted. I think we've agreed on that before. I also make impulsive decisions. So when she asked, I was like, yep, okay, let's do this. Just let's, hang out with a stranger and talk about this kind of like thing that not everybody knows about. But it's turned out.
We definitely don't feel like strangers anymore. I feel like we know each other pretty intimately, but it's true. Like, I feel like Alex sort of is the voice in a way of a partner. I write a lot about The Banker, which is the sort of pseudonym I give for my husband on the blog. But he is an introvert. So if I was to sort of co-host the show with him, it would be, he's amazing. But I think Alex has a way of articulating that experience that, not everyone can do that. And that's when I feel that the blog or the podcast is the most successful, is when somebody tells me like, oh my God, you articulated exactly how I'm feeling, or like I couldn't have said it better myself. So I think that Alex has a good way of doing that from the partner side. And so, it feels like a good partnership. How did you guys come together?
I was just going to say, I can totally relate with the impulsiveness. I started searching Instagram for wheelchair influencers. That's what I searched. And Terry's account popped up. And I shot him a message and I was like, I followed him and I was like, hey, just saying hi from, the States. and he invited me to a support group in Canada. And I don't know, it just felt like home when I got into his support group.
Was that virtual, that support
Yes.
group?
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
Was it is that a recent like friendship, or how long have you guys known each other now?
I think it's only been about a year, Terry, isn't it?
Yeah, give or
All
take
right.
maybe a year and 2 months, something like that. Yeah.
So when I showed up in the support group, I had this microphone that you see here, and he was very taken by it. And he was asking me a whole bunch of questions about it. And I told him about the equipment that I had. And he's like, oh, cool. And I said, here, watch what I can do with this. And I did an intro that you hear on our show. And he was like, yep, that's it. We're doing it. Let's go.
Sold me. That sold me. I said, let's go. What are we waiting for?
You got a bunch of tech nerds here. Just like a nice microphone.
Totally.
Audio files. I prefer audio file.
Yeah.
Alex, I have a question for you.
Oh, yeah.
Did you know about MS when your wife got diagnosed?
Yeah, I did actually. Yeah, my aunt my aunt was diagnosed in like the 80s. So pre-DMT, pre-awareness, pre-everything. As far as I was aware, I guess. But I grew up with my aunt coming to family functions with, maybe at Christmas she was using one mobility aid, maybe at Thanksgiving she was using another one, and Easter she was just walking, or she wouldn't show up at all, right? So all the sort of variations you go through, and I didn't know all the in-depth stuff, but I knew what it was. I knew it existed. So when my wife was diagnosed, it was I knew it wasn't the end of the world, but I knew it wasn't going to be easy. So, and I think maybe I knew maybe a little bit more what to expect in the long run than she did, because she wasn't as aware of it, at the time. But she's much more attuned expert now than I am. But yeah, no, I wasn't totally ignorant of it when she was diagnosed.
And what about your family? What did they have to say about that?
Well, I think because my aunt has had it, but she lives with it, they weren't, as, I don't know, critical or judgmental. I'm putting kind of a negative spin on it. They've always been supportive. And yeah, it's hard, right? Like, a lot of the times that maybe family doesn't do as much research as you think they would do, right? Like when someone has a kid, I think like everybody's like, oh, I'm the expert. We're all the experts on this. Let's teach you the different ways of having a kid, parenting a kid, blah, blah, blah. But if someone has a chronic illness, that's rare enough that people are like, oh, sorry, you have that. What can we do? But like, nothing.
But dude, they still give a ton of advice. Like, I'm not like speaking about your family specifically, but you don't need to know what you're talking about to be like, you need to do this, this, and this.
Yeah, I guess locally speaking, yeah, we didn't get like, there wasn't people like, oh, how about turmeric or this thing or that thing?
Have you tried yoga?
Yeah, exactly. Have you, right? Like, but again, it's because of that prior experience. But generally speaking, yeah, sure, I'm sure there's tons of critique and comments and stuff like that. But we're lucky, I guess, in that way.
See, I ask you these questions because I have my own family issues or whatnot, people giving me advice. So I look at you and I'm like, what did your family have to say? But even though it runs in your family, like you have MS in your family. So
yeah, I mean, I will say there have been comments that are, not nice that come from some members of my family. But I mean, they're either gone or they're so old and outdated that you can't possibly take them seriously. So it's one of those things, right? But generally speaking, the family that I keep close to me most of the time are supportive. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, that is something we had mentioned where in one of our episodes we talked about how your friendship and your family changes dramatically once you get into the diagnosis itself, because you realize just who is actually on your side and who just says they're there.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah.
Ardra, do you have a special or a favorite episode? Because I love all your episodes. My favorite one, just so you know, is the first one, because you introduce Alex and then I get to learn about him. And I see your personalities really shine the first one because, it's the first episode. Everyone's always nervous.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we recorded the first one and then we killed it. Yeah, we were just like, we need to redo this. So, yeah, this is all so new to me. I don't have a broadcasting background, but that was a fun episode. I think it was called The Worst Symptom of MS. And, I'm not surprised that one is popular. I kind of looked at what topics resonate on the blog and then tried to start there. I think for me, it's been really exciting to interview some people outside of the MS community, but within the disability community, who I think are really cool and interesting. Rebecca Tossig is an author, and we did an episode with her on parenting, and I don't know anything about parenting, but she was just really cool to talk to, and her knowledge about ableism is just like, her book is great. I encourage everyone to pick it up. It's called Sitting Pretty. It's not actually about parenting, but just about the experience of disability. And I think for those of us who are not born with a disability, like MS, you acquire it. And so you sort of live your life one way, and then, your experience changes, but so does how people perceive you in those interactions and dealing with all of that. I think she has really cool things to say about that. I really liked that episode. I loved talking to Zach Anner also. He's cerebral palsy. Great. He's just the coolest guy. Like, I just want to be friends. Zach, call me. Yeah, I don't know. They're all like, I feel like super stressed about every episode. Like, I just want to nail it. And then it's like a big relief when it's out there and it's done. And so anyway, it's really like nice to hear you guys say that you like and enjoy the episodes. Thank you.
And the first one's like it's like a huge list as well. Everybody loves lists, right? So
totally.
Yep. Yeah, we're the same way. We stress every little tiny little detail, and then once I hit submit and it's out into the universe, that's it. Then you just gotta kind of accept what you did and move on from there.
I think that was for me was like the difference, like the struggle of, as a writer, you can agonize over every word, and I do, and I really take my time and just make sure everything is exactly the way I want to say it. But when, it's verbal and it's recorded and we don't edit it, we have a producer that does that. And I really can feel like, oh, I said that so inarticulately and I repeated myself and I said and ah and MS cog fog, like, do I sound like an idiot? Like, that part of it is when you're a perfectionist.
And honestly, I don't know how much editing they do. Like, I watch it back and I'm like, maybe he's really good, because I don't notice any edits, and I'm like, I don't know what he's doing, but it looks good. I'm happy with it. But yeah,
we've had an entire episode where we went so far off the rails. And I was like, how did we even start talking about that? And so the cog fog is major with us.
Oh my God.
I feel like I hate that when I'm being interviewed and I'm asked a question and I sort of forget where I'm going halfway through.
Dude, that happens to me quite often.
Yeah.
My intros are so important to me because it's what builds the episode. And that's why it means so much. And when I mess up one word, as you guys saw, it flusters me and all that stuff. And words, don't talk to me about words. The and ahs that you do, I do other words. And once I tell you what I do, you're probably going to notice them all the time. And this guy doesn't like it too much, but I always go, anyway. And that's something that needs to go away. Or sometimes, anyway, you know what I mean? That needs to go away too.
We all have those speech patterns. It's funny, when we were filming Fashion Disc, it was pointed out to me how much, when people are asked a question, they start to answer with so blah blah blah, and I was like, there's no way I'm gonna do that. And then I did it like 10 times in a row, and then you just have to, I think it's like practice and listening to yourself, and just, I don't know, I guess I feel like that's also part of what people find appealing, I guess, about podcasts, like that it's not polished, that we're just candid, kind of shooting the shit. Yeah.
So like Nicole's told me, at least you guys use words. I tend to like do these like deep breaths sometimes. I'll either sigh out or I'll do that in the middle of in a rant that I'm on, and she's like, stop breathing, and I'm like, I don't know if I can do
That's
that.
only something that your partner would notice, right?
Yeah,
It's like the noises you make when you're chewing, like stop breathing.
I wanna talk about fashion dis because I am a huge fan. I recently found out through your Instagram, but I have a problem. I can't watch the episodes because AMI doesn't play well in the United States.
I know. Oh my God. You know what? I hear this so much. First of all,
Yeah.
thank you for your interest in the show. It's so exciting. It's like we're not trying to diss the States. It's a licensing issue, right?
Yeah.
So
I have to get myself a VPN so I can pretend I'm in Canada.
Yeah, maybe. Well, anyway, I feel like you guys need to like meet in real life anyway. Like you need to come up to Canada and then binge both seasons. You could do that.
I could. I am just so I'm telling you, I did a deep dive on the website. I took every guest you had. I went to every sponsor that was listed, and I'm like, this is the greatest thing. And for those of you who don't know, it is a whole makeover show for people with different mobility aids and different disabilities. And the fact that I could buy a leather jacket now and look good in my wheelchair, that was never possible before because my leather just didn't look right when I was sitting down. So it's awesome. I'm a fan.
I am so proud of this show. I mean, I could talk for the entire episode about the awesomeness of it. I feel like, it has two really important functions. And the first is to put people with disabilities to provide representation in the fashion and beauty world because it's a demographic that's really been erased from that world. And it wasn't something that I noticed having, seen myself represented in the culture until I became disabled in my 30s. It wasn't something that I noticed until I was erased from that myself. So providing that representation, we really wanted each makeover participant to leave with a portfolio of magazine quality images of themselves, just to like add to the canon of fashionable images of people with disabilities. That's something I actively sought out when I was first needing mobility aids. And things have changed dramatically since like 2016 when I was Googling like cool rollator, pimp my walker, whatever. Like there was zero, there was nothing. And now you can find those images mostly on social media. And it's still, we need to add that to the mainstream culture. But that's a really important function of this show. I'm really proud of it. And then the other part is bringing awareness of all the cool brands and companies that are investing in accessible and universal design, because that's something else that you don't. I mean, I didn't realize how inaccessible Toronto is, like bars and restaurants and just all kinds of bullshit. Like there's no main floor bathrooms. Like those physical barriers to accessibility are kind of maybe the first thing we think about when we think of the lack of accessibility. But we don't think about how clothing hangs differently on seated body types, or how buttons and zippers can be challenging for people with dexterity, and people with limb differences, like never being able to find clothes that are made for them, that don't have to be altered. And so, I mean, the exciting news is that every year there are more and more companies that are working in this space, and they're doing really great work. And not all this stuff needs to look medical. That's the other really big change, is that recognition that people with disabilities also want to have access to style and cool things. Like we care about how we look. And so anyway, I hope that you will get to see the show at some point.
Yeah.
And I feel like, how the F does this show not exist yet? Like you cannot count the number of makeover shows that have been made in the history of time. It's probably in the thousands. And there's nothing like this. There's nothing.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right, because the inclusion and representation is so important, because so many times, and I know you both know this, when you're talking to someone, they say, I felt so alone, or I feel so isolated because of the diagnosis. It's one of the main things that keeps coming up. And this, and I pointed to the screen for the show, this is so important to connect, to see, like, oh yeah, there is a bunch of people out there that look like me.
And they're cool.
And they are cool.
It's like,
yeah.
I would hang out with that person.
Yep.
And I've said this too, that I feel like it's sometimes easier for me to accept that science hasn't fixed my brain damage yet. It's harder to accept that like the culture is still excluding people with disabilities, because that's something we can change like right away.
And it's easy, and it doesn't cost anything. You just got to be nice.
You'll make money is the other thing, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to spend money out here.
It is nice, like, to have representation. I mean, in another sphere, like I watch this show called Rami it's on Hulu anyways, but it's like all Arab cast. So, but it's something that like you never see. So when you get to see people who look like you, who, you know, own the screen, it's so helpful. And these pictures are amazing. Like I follow it, but it's incredible to see the transformation. And my favorite part is the shoes. I want those shoes. I just want to zip open the whole front of the shoe and step in. That should be a shoe for everyone. I don't understand why it's like
Billy footwear for those who are curious and looking it up. Yeah, it's
Definitely
really great if your toes curl under when you're trying to shove them into a regular shoe.
Billy footwear, you said, right?
Yeah.
Great. The reason why I started my Instagram account originally is because I want to normalize, okay, I'm in a wheelchair. I'm going to show you guys my life is still going on. I'm still a funny guy. And when someone who can walk falls down, everybody laughs. But when someone's in a wheelchair and they fall down, it's, you know, am I going to hell for laughing? Am I, you know, so I wanted to normalize it.
You are.
So, and I'm a fashion guy too. I like to look good. And yeah, you're right. There's a lot of clothing I cannot wear. And my partner, she knows. She's like, oh, I can't get him this. I can't get him that. She knows I have certain things I can't wear, you know, and my skin is sensitive. You guys get it. So I don't want to wear anything that, anyway, you guys get what I'm trying to say. There you go again. So I had a question for you as well. Did your podcast, did it meet or exceed your expectations? Did you realize that, because your podcast has talked a lot, I'm telling you.
I mean, there's no way for me to know that. I just like, you guys tell me, so I believe it. I mean, I don't know that I had expectations other than just to feel nervous that I would say something stupid, you know, or just not be interesting or relevant. I don't like, just nervousness. So it's been a learning experience. We have just been offered a season 2, which is exciting. And so we'll be back in the fall with another 10 episodes. And, you know, I am a lifelong learner. I am excited to see how we can improve upon season 1 and go from there. But, you know, I also would love to hear the kinds of episodes that people want to hear about.
Like I'll say that it sort of exceeded any expectation I had, but I think my frame of reference is a bit different because I have my own podcast. It's quite small or whatever, but or I shouldn't say it's small, but you know, it doesn't have the same platform. So it is nice to, like, when an episode gets released. Usually when I have released my own episode, I'm like, there's some likes, some people download it, and it's great and it feels nice. And then like a Tripping on Air will come out, and I'm like, all I see is like there's 1,000 likes on day 1 or something. I'm like, holy Christ. And there's lots of comments, there's tons of engagement, I think. And like, you know, engagement is tough. It's like, you know, maybe 1 in 100 people will actually leave a comment or something. So when you have, you know, 5-10 comments on each different platform, you're like, wow, there are actually, because I don't know the numbers either. They don't tell me anything. So I'm like, if I see engagement, I'm like, whoa, people are listening to this. And I was in a support group, or I go periodically to this support group for partners of people with MS. And a couple people have mentioned it, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of surprising. But yeah, I would say it exceeded mine for sure. I mean, expected it because Ardra has a big platform. I kind of expected it to be listened to and to be distributed well. But comments are always interesting to hear, and people are like, oh, I think one of the most important things I get out of it is like, if people actually do say, that's what my partner does, or Alex said this thing that my partner also says, and I'm like, oh, okay, because being a voice for anybody is a daunting task. So I think if you're validated in it, then it's nice to be validated that way. And then it's nice to be able to be like, okay, I am saying like what other people feel and stuff. I'm not alone either. Because on the other, like I said, on the other side of it, other side being your partner's side, that's a whole other, bunch of emotions and other things that happen that a lot of people don't talk about as well.
Sure. And often kind of on the back burner. And and I would dare I say I've been guilty of taking my wife for granted as, the person who looks out for my best interest, 24 hours a day, with the diagnosis and all. So, I can see how you would kind of feel like, hey, what about me too? And then when someone says, oh yeah, I see you there. And then you're like, oh yeah, okay. I'm not,
Yeah.
I think like my advice on that is just to always say the truest thing. Like, if whatever you are experiencing, if you can articulate that in the truest way possible, there's no way you're the only one. And I also find it extremely rewarding anytime I hear from anyone who says like, thank you. I feel the same. I don't feel so alone. And I think what people don't realize when they say that to me is how therapeutic that is for me, how much I also feel less alone in connecting with people. It's like I have the exact same needs of, just being, I don't know, I'm umming all over the place. Guys, this is like, I'm gonna get like super TMI. Is that cool?
Totally,
It's your show.
please. It's never TMI.
It's just like, okay, you're gonna eat your words. A few years ago, this was like kind of an impetus for Fashion Disc, but I'll try not to diverge too much. I was commissioned to write a magazine article about beauty and disability. And this was like 2016. So I just elicited two girlfriends of mine, and they came to my apartment and like made them over. I photographed them, whatever. So they were here for the day. I might actually ask you to edit this out later, but like later on in the bathroom, I realized that we all use the same catheter, like Speedy Cats. Like, and I just like, it actually made, because I could see like the garbage was full, then we'd all peed all day. And I just was like, it's such a small thing, but it felt so, I don't know, it was like so normal, it was like 75% of the people in the house that day were catheter users. Like, we were the normal ones. Anyway, I'm
These are my
totally gonna
people.
regret that I said that, but
Not
like,
even. I know
right?
tons. I got stories. So I run these support groups, but I don't do it for the people, even though I do love making people feel like I show my vulnerable side, and then I see a lot of people open up right away. I got story galore about peeing myself, and I have no problem telling people because it really opens up a whole story and people don't feel alone. They're like, oh, this cool guy, I'm not that cool, but this cool guy does that too. And, people don't feel alone.
It's very Billy Madison, all the
Oh
cool
my God,
kids.
I love it.
The exact
I
same
love that you
thing.
said that. I love that you say that. You know what? If someone's next to me and they pee themselves and they're embarrassed, I'll pee myself for them. That's the type of guy I am, believe me. So I get a lot of support from facilitating these groups. I get a lot, just like you said, it's therapeutic for me too. People thank me. They're like, thank you. And no, thank you for being there. Thank you for letting me help others. It helps me as well. And
I get it. It just gives meaning to like something so honestly, MS can be overwhelmingly shitty. It's like it
Yep.
sucks. And so to find some kind of meaning in helping someone else through it helps me. It just helps make sense of it. It really does I don't know, keep me going a lot of the time. It sustains me.
I hear you. I always tell people you never know what happens behind closed doors. Like everyone sees smiles, Terry smiling. You don't know what happens behind closed doors. I've had my episodes, and my partner is so great. And sometimes I feel so guilty because I'm like, man, how do you deal with this? And I love how Alex in the episode says he's scared sometimes. And she wants to say that, but she doesn't want to say it out loud to me because she doesn't want to freak me out either. So I love how she can relate to Alex, and you need that caregiver on your show for that reason. So everyone.
So does your partner listen to this show? Dan, what does your partner say about Alex?
The vulnerable side of him is what she is attracted to. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people say, "No, you got this. You're okay." It doesn't really speak the truth.
Yeah. It's impossible to be like, nobody's built to be like an absolute pillar, right? Very few of us even have like functionality to deal with our own mental health, let alone someone else's mental health and physical health and all that stuff. So it takes there's a lot of things that go on, but I appreciate that that you said that, and I appreciate that she feels that way. Like I said, the validation is it's good, and it makes me not feel so singular. So that's cool that she can relate to it like that.
Alex, when was your wife diagnosed, if you don't mind me asking?
Put me on the spot. I feel like that's an anniversary question now.
Okay.
And I think it was like 2016. I want to say 2016. Yeah. We were in France, actually. We had lived in the UK for a few years, and then we were coming back to Canada to live. So we said, okay, before we leave, we're going to do this massive road trip through Europe. And so one of the places that we stopped was a farm in France, and we were going to work there for like 2 weeks. It was like one of those, work stays. You stay in we thought we were going to stay in like a nice room. And then when we got there, they're like, here's this dusty old trailer, and it's disgusting, but it's yours for 2 weeks. So a few days into it, I think just before actually we got there, the town before, Nicole was having some issues with her eyesight. And so over the next few days, it kept getting worse. And then to the point where we had to go to the hospital. And the hospital was like an hour and a half away in a city called Angers. And it was a university hospital, and they were spectacular. She spent 10 days there, but basically they ran all of these tests. And one of the student doctors was like, it's probably MS. And we're like, what? So that was like the first diagnosis, but that was the first episode, right? So it had to be validated, had to go through another episode again. And that happened when we got back to Canada. So it turned out he was right. But even the other doctors in the university, in the hospital, were like, you shouldn't just say it like that. But I just want to say, like, elite level food, number one.
Yeah, she totally got you out of that shitty job also, right?
Like we said, right? MS saved us from pulling, because our job was not miraculous. I wanted to be there to be like, let's milk these cows, let's make some cheese. That was the vibe going into it. We got there, we ended up picking weeds out of a beet field, and the beet field were the beets for the cows to eat. So it was like bottom of the barrel labor, and it was like crushing heat in the summer in the south of France and stuff like that.
I literally feel like I'd rather have MS than do
that.
Well, yeah.
MS just got like revved up, and it was like, fuck this, I've had enough, I'm coming out. So that's how it happened. So it's a bit of a, for lack of a better phrase, storybook thing, but that's when it happened. Yeah.
Wow. I've heard it many times where MS saves people's lives. It kind of saved mine. I won't lie to you. I was on an unhealthy track. I'm sure my veins were coated, and anyway,
No, I want to hear this.
was
Terry,
Yeah.
not, I was
that's
not,
up.
oh man, I have a
Sounds-
If you're
story.
willing to share, then
Of course. Of
yeah.
course. I'm an open book. Sometimes I share too much. But yeah, I was always go, go, go. I was an aggressive driver. I always laugh. That's the Middle Eastern in me. Um, I was an aggressive driver. I loved to drive. I was ignorant. I'm a hypocrite now because when I'm in a car as a passenger and I see someone drive the way I used to drive, I'm like, oh, look at these guys. They're so stupid. They're going to kill someone. And
Did
here,
you just feel invincible? Like, was it like a symptom of being young?
man, it was, yes, I was invincible. I always felt like I was a great driver. I was unhealthy too. I'm talking about McDonald's every day. I was overweight, but I wasn't like some big guy, but I was overweight and, unhealthy. And then I got my first attack and then I kind of
So
changed.
how old were you, Terry? I feel like this is super interesting because I think in our last episode or second last, we're talking about the way people can sort of blame themselves for their diagnosis. And we heard a lot of these stories too, right? Like, what did I do? Like, you didn't give yourself your MS, but I think your story is not that uncommon.
Thank you. First of all, my first attack, yeah, I was really unhealthy and I did blame myself because I never took care of myself. My whole life, I never gave myself enough respect. I never focused on my body, none of that. And I got my first attack and then, I went on Avonex, I went on Rebif, and then they put me on cyclophosphamide, which is chemotherapy. St. Mike's, I was in Toronto. I moved away from Toronto. I moved away from Toronto because I knew I was slowly going into a chair and I had a lot of friends in Toronto. So I kind of ghosted there. I ghosted Toronto. I started my new life in the town that I'm in, London, Ontario. And actually, I was in Toronto yesterday visiting a friend. I don't know if you heard of Jonathan Allinger. We interviewed him. He's actually biking around Canada right now. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Look him up, Jonathan Allinger. So I went there to meet up with him for a day. Yeah, you see, the brain fog just started. Anyway,
No, you're like, this is like, I'm super compelling. I have so many follow-up questions. Keep going.
please, yeah. So when I changed my lifestyle, my MS symptoms diminished. They were hidden. No one knew I had MS for the longest time. And then I started getting comfortable because I lost a lot of weight. I was looking good. People are like, wow, look at you. You look great. Did you cure yourself? So I got comfortable again and I started going back into that old lifestyle of eating unhealthy. Because again, it's really hard to cook when you're alone. Now I have a partner. She's great. We make meals together. We're on this healthy track for the last 2 years. It's great. But when you're alone, it's a lot of effort to make a salad. It's really easy. I get it, but it's really a lot of effort because when you're in a chair to turn and to wash your hands, then to turn the other direction, and I have no ab strength. So it's really hard. So I just gave up and I started ordering food, but I would order food like I would get a salad from Subway. I'm like, that's healthy. That's healthy, And that's what I did all the time. And then I got another attack. And then I hate saying this because I don't want to preach to people your diet, your nutrition. I hate that. I don't want to preach it. It's to each their own. What do you think's better for you? So, but I feel it knocked me down when I was unhealthy eating again and knocked me down. And I was convinced, medicine, food is medicine.
I certainly think it's part of the overall wellness. I can relate to a lot of your story. I was 23 when I was diagnosed and also like not eating well at all. Like drinking a lot, staying up late, partying, working too hard, like not thinking of any of these things. And then after I was diagnosed, wanting to do whatever I could to get things under control. And I undertook a very strict diet. And when I recovered, same thing. I gained a lot of weight with steroids in the first year. And then when I I went on this really restrictive, very strict diet. I lost all the weight and then some. I was doing very well. I'd gone from being blind and stumbling around, barely able to walk, to like, then you couldn't tell that anything was going on. And lots of compliments from everyone also. And of course, like, I was taking full fucking credit, like, I cured this. I have got this under control. And there's a real danger in that, because I think it's important to manage what we can with MS. But, when we put all that responsibility on ourselves, what happens when you get sick again? Whose fault is it? And I feel like a lot of the warrior language that we use around fighting any kind of illness is super problematic because, I'm sure you guys have heard me rant on and on about ending up in a wheelchair. Like, it's not that you didn't try hard enough. You're not fighting hard enough. Like, I think we don't give enough credit to the scientific process of what's going on with our disease. And yes, I agree that we can influence things significantly with lifestyle and diet and exercise, but there's definitely a degree of what is out of our control. And, we can't blame ourselves for that.
So I had people indirectly shame me. They say, oh, you shouldn't give up. You shouldn't, because when I had a chair 5 years before I used it. I had MS. Within 2 years, I said, oh, I'm going to get a wheelchair. I'm going to try to normalize the wheelchair. So I had it sitting in my office. I had it around friends, but I never sat in it and I made fun of it. But I just had it around so that people would get used to it. So if one day I'm in it, it's not a shock. But no one ever got used to it. No one ever got used to it. And whenever I sat in it, or if I felt like I needed to sit down, you can't stop. You got to keep moving. You can't give up. If you don't use it, you lose it. That's what I heard all the time.
I've heard that too. It's wild.
It's
I think that's, if we can like circle back to fashion tips, I think that, but I think when we really, really have stigmatized mobility aids, we never say, we never talk about being afraid of losing mobility. We talk about being afraid of having to use a wheelchair. And I think we have stigmatized it culturally. It's such a massive thing that we can hardly blame the people in our lives for having such negative attitudes around mobility aids and disability, because it's so ingrained in the culture. And it's systemic, a lot, right? It's just a lot to overcome and to undo. But that's what you guys are out here doing. That's what I'm trying to do. And I think it's that visibility. I think social media can be so toxic and so problematic in so many ways, but in this particular way, wow, it has given rise to such a community. And I think it's awesome for that. And I commend you.
Oh, thank you. You and you as well. We're all playing the same game, right?
Totally.
And with social media, the good thing about the algorithm is, like me, when I'm searching for people who are using the wheelchair or using whatever, eventually the algorithm just fills your entire feed and you go, oh, all of these people are exactly like me. These are thousands of people all over the world who are using the same wheelchair from the same company. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't have known any of them. I wouldn't have met Terry without social media. That's for sure.
What are your favorite hashtags?
I don't hashtag.
Like when you're searching for stuff, you just use terms you don't like.
Yeah. Hashtag fashion this.
Okay. Cool.
Babes with mobility aids. That's a good one.
You had an episode on mobility aids, which I loved as well, just so you know.
Yeah, that is actually, that's probably one of my favorites, actually. One of the things the support group that I was going to for a while is run by the MS Society. And so the lady there had said something. She was like, if you think you need a mobility aid, or if you think you need a certain mobility aid, you're probably 2 or 3 models of mobility aid behind where you need to be. So if you think you need a cane, you probably need X or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
And to a certain degree, I mean, maybe, but I mean, it seems like we have a wardrobe full of, or I should say, an arsenal of things that my partner chooses to suit up with given the day. So having a variety is pretty key. So that was a good episode because even I learned quite a bit from that. But I was just going to pile on because Ardra mentioned Toronto, and I live in Toronto as well, and it is terrible for accessibility. It is so bad.
Really?
Like I play music, and so I play in some bars and clubs around Toronto, and like every place I play now, that's like the first thing I'll think about when I walk in the door. Oh, no ramp. Oh, why is there a step to get in here? Why is the bathroom downstairs? Oh, great. My wife can't come to this show, or oh, my friend can't come to this show, or this is going to be extremely difficult for them to navigate to watch me play bass for 30 minutes. So it's not like, it's horrible to think like, oh, I can't even invite some people out to this because I know they won't be able to make it. Or I can't tell everybody. I'll be telling, let's say the world, I'm advertising this, but not everybody will look at that and they'll be like, well, is it accessible? No. And that's shit, like that's not cool.
So, not shaming you, just letting you know, MS Society has changed their name to MS Canada.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Maybe that's because I haven't been in a few months, to be fair.
It's fine. It's fine.
All
but
right. Noted.
I also help them. One of the groups that you go to probably is the caregivers one. Mm-hmm. So I help them as well. And that's the one. I run another group for Ontario and Nunavut region. I don't know.
Wow.
If there's anyone from the Nunavut region, welcome.
Quite a big reach.
So when I went to Toronto, when I went to Toronto yesterday, we went 2 hours earlier than we're supposed to go because I wanted to check where am I going to use the washroom? Where are we going to park? Because I know Toronto, I live there. And of course, everyone's like, oh, this is accessible. But, even MSers are telling me it's accessible. You're fine. And nothing against MSers. But when I get there, they don't know, unless they're in a wheelchair, what accessible really is. Like, can I actually put my chair in the washroom? Because I can't go out. You guys understand. I'm not going to stand outside the washroom and wobble in and fall. And it's too much stress on me.
I can't even really super weigh in on this topic without derailing the rest of the show with negativity. Change is happening. It is definitely happening. Check out Maya Ziv's Access Now app. She's doing great work. There's just like some information about Delta offering wheelchair seats on planes now, which is pretty freaking amazing.
We were just talking about that in our last episode. I said, there's a big push down here in the States from a couple of congresswomen to mandate that planes have wheelchair accessible seats because they require you to check it like luggage.
Yeah. And they get wrecked and it's really? My point is just like change is slow and incremental, but it is happening. I think there's a lot of positive things happening also. I mean, we still have to be super squeaky about all the things that we still need, but I think also that the biggest way to do that is also by cultivating a sense of disability pride. And I think people can get squeamish at that term also because it's still pretty socially acceptable to think you're supposed to hate yourself if you're disabled. But I've said this before too, that having pride as a disabled woman doesn't mean that I like or enjoy my MS at all. It means that I don't accept that I am diminished by it, that I have the same rights as everyone else. And I think that pride is so necessary because for a lot of people with disabilities, it's difficult to even claim an identity as disabled. And it's something that for me, it was like a privilege to pass as non-disabled for a very long time, but I still feel like I do have to, reveal I'm very hesitant to use the word disclose. I don't like it in this context, but a lot of people with MS do not identify as disabled. They will say, I'm chronically ill. I have a chronic illness, and I don't blame them. I felt like that in the past too, but I think right. It's like, for me, there came a point when it was like ridiculous to deny that I was no longer disabled. But if we can find any pride in that identity, that's what allows us to act collectively and to demand better resources and treatment, and to ally ourselves with other disabled groups as well. But when we're like, we use terms like differently abled or whatever, it's like we're basically saying like there's no problem, you don't have to solve it. The onus is on us to figure shit out, and that's like it's not cool.
Yeah, I totally hear what you're saying. You got to own it because it's you. You wake up that way.
I don't want to like feel like I have to like hide this part of me or be like ashamed of it.
No,
I had a lot of pride issues and ego issues. My ego got in the way of, me making my life comfortable.
I said that too for a while. I was like, I'd rather like stumble around and have people think I'm drunk than like use a mobility aid and look disabled, which is like,
that's one thing I think.
Decision.
Yeah, I thought like there's obviously a lot of internalized ableism with folks, right? So I think in that mobility aid episode we talked about like the first mobility aid that we either had or our partner got us. Anyways, what I'm getting to is I got Nicole like a walking stick. I mean, it has like a handle like a cane and stuff, but that was like the first thing because I saw her not being stable and stuff like that. And I was like, I think, like I said, because I had a history or knowledge of MS before, I was like, you should probably get a mobility aid, like, and just not be. But again, that ableism happens. So, maybe there was some self-consciousness or something like that. But I was like, no, take this, because the last thing you want is to fall. And, you being safe is more important than this sort of stigma that exists and stuff like that. So I don't know, maybe it was something that maybe she didn't like it, but I did it anyways, and from my perspective that was the right thing to do. So
Alex, you're so right. Let me tell you, because I never had that support where, use a cane already. What are you doing? Just like you said, when I was using a cane, I should have been using a walker. It's always, but I'm like, a walker, I'll try to look cool in a cane. I got a lot of ego problems. But whenever I meet someone that says, oh, my wife has MS or my cousin, the first thing I do is I advocate for that person, for the MSer. So I'm like, oh, he does? Listen, your cousin, if she needs to sit down, you make her sit down. If she needs to sit down, you bring her a chair, you make her, don't give her a chance to say no, because I was saying no for the first 5 years and I was hiding my MS. I would lean against the wall. You guys would talk to me while I was standing up, but I wouldn't even focus on you anymore because I was focusing on when am I going to sit down next? I'm not going to, I have something to say, but I'm not going to start a topic because then you're going to continue this conversation and I need to sit down. I'm going to have to pee soon. I'm tired. So my focus is gone. I look like I might be rude because sometimes my eyes just start shifting. So I'm a big advocate for.
That's super interesting, Terry. I felt the same. I remember wanting somebody to tell me, I'm proud of you for using the rollator. It seems so silly. Like I'm a grown ass woman in her 30s. And I was like, I just need like my mom or my husband or like everyone I know basically to just like, not just like ignore it and pretend but to like actively say like, I'm proud of you for doing this. And I think, I can't fault any of my loved ones for not recognizing that that's what I needed, because I am a strong personality and I don't really let anyone tell me what to do or what I should do. So, we're all kind of figuring this out and navigating it as we go. So maybe that's a message to, like, if there's like a version of me in your life, like maybe they might need to hear, like, I'm proud of you for doing this, which it sounds like, Terry, you also would have benefited from.
So this has become a therapy talk. Thank you.
Oh my God, we went like super deep, you
That's
guys.
amazing.
This is like,
That's real talk.
Can I ask you kind of a dummy question maybe so I was at like a concert a while ago, or I've been to a couple of shows where this happened, and somebody did have a cane, and it was a really cool cane. And I was super tempted to just be like, hey, cool cane. That's all I wanted to say. And I didn't know whether I should like compliment
dude, yes,
it.
that's
yeah.
Okay.
obviously
Sure.
that's like saying, like, I love your bag or I love your shoes.
Right.
Like,
Hold on.
Oh yeah.
Hold
Okay.
on. What if you're I hate taking my scooter. I hate taking the scooter. I love being in my wheelchair because it looks cooler, because I have pride, whatever. So when I do take my scooter, I don't like when someone says, oh, whoa, slow down there. Or,
okay,
oh.
that is not even the same. That is like some asshole who thinks they're funny and they're the first person that has ever asked a wheelchair user if they have a license to drive
That's
it.
like if
Like,
someone
my
asked
God.
me,
Yeah.
not funny. Like,
oh,
that
how's
is
the
not
weather
the
up there?
same
Yeah.
at all. That's like,
Yeah,
no.
the cane is cool. I get it. But
I get asked a lot, where did you get that cane? Because they'll say,
Yeah.
that's really cool. Where did you get that? And then I tell
Okay.
them whatever website I got it off of.
I was
Uh,
gonna
That's
I was
like,
gonna
if
go
you can
one.
like insert like bag or shoe or hat in there,
Yeah.
it's cool.
I was thinking about going one further because I feel like I knew where they got it, because my wife has a similar cane. It's like one of those epoxy cast canes, and you can kind of light it up and stuff like that, and with a big question mark handle on it and stuff. It's super cool. I think it's Neo Walk Sticks. Is that right? I think that's what they're called. Anyways, they came from England, I think, and yeah, it was super cool. It was like red, and I was like, I wanted to be like, nice cane, and then I was gonna follow it up with, is it one of these? Because then they know that I know.
right. You're in.
No,
Right.
dude, no, but that's like you're getting close
that
to
too
virtue
far?
signaling there. That's virtue signaling,
Okay,
right?
okay, I'll take
Legit
it.
compliment, that's cool, but like they don't need to know that you're like one of us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm with you. Like, it's a learning curve still. That's what I'm doing here. So
I'm learning too. I say the dumbest things too to someone. I'm like,
We
why did I
all
say?
do. We all
Yeah.
do. We
the
all
last
do.
thing I want is them to have a smile and then roll their eyes. So, but if a compliment's good, I'll do a compliment. That's awesome.
Yeah, but like only if it actually is a compliment. If it's a
Well-
shitty cane, you know.
Well, yeah, I'm
No
not gonna be
compliment.
like, hey, nice broke ass cane, dude. Like,
Level-
you should
level
try
your-
one of
step your
these.
game up.
No. Yeah, I gotta step your game up. No, it was genuinely cool though. So if I see him around town again, then I will say something.
But and don't feel too bad, because as a part-time wheelchair user, I still don't even know how to approach other, like, I don't even know how to handle it when there's another wheelchair user in my vicinity. I'm not like, hey, cool wheels, bro. Like, I
Just
don't
like
know.
lock eyes and you're
Yeah,
like,
like-
hey.
Fair enough.
So when people ask me, sometimes they say, hey, Terry, what hobbies do you do? And I'm like, hobbies? MS is a hobby on its own. You know, people just don't get it. So I'm going to ask you, do you have any other hobbies other than your podcast? Your podcast is more than enough.
Well, I mean, I write the blog. I'm working on a book. I also have a television show in development. And I have a dog and I like to travel. But I totally agree that just like keeping myself alive takes up like most of my energy and my day. So
tell me about your equine therapy. I saw that.
it's so cool. It's really, really cool. So I kind of heard that horseback riding was a thing for people with MS, like big in Germany.
Huh.
But I thought that I was way too disabled to qualify, I guess. But when I looked into it, I learned that was not the case. And there's a riding center just north of Toronto that is it's called Card. I'm like almost hesitate to give the name because I don't want it to fill up so that I can't get a class, but it is amazing. They only serve people with disabilities. So I was like, how the hell am I going to get on a horse? Like, I can't, I use a rollator to walk, but my right foot only comes off the ground with like a lot of help from my upper body. And anyway, blah, blah. There's like a lift that raises me on a platform to the level of the horse. And then like two people, like one person supports me and the other swings my leg over the horse. And it's a bit terrifying, but it does feel very safe. And actually I'm just making shit up now, but when I had heard that Queen Elizabeth was riding well into her 90s, I was like, I bet that's how she does it.
For sure. Yeah.
Anyway, the gait of a horse mimics a human gait, like a healthy human walking gait. And so when you're on the horse, your body is moving like it thinks it's walking in a healthy way. And there are people with more paralysis, like more advanced disease than I have, that do this. And it's very cool. And it's good for your posture. Like I was born without abs, and MS like destroyed whatever was left. Like I don't like some magic trick that I can sit up straight in that horse. I guess it is sort of how your body is positioned when you're on it, but it's kind of a magical thing. It's really, even last week, it was the end of the day. I was having a bad MS day. I wasn't walking well at all. I almost felt like, is it a bad idea for me to ride tonight? I'm feeling so weak. I feel like that's when accidents happen. But after an hour of riding, my walking was actually better when I got off the horse, and I just like loosened stuff up. And so yeah, and I mean, then there's like the social aspect of it. The sidewalkers that I have are volunteers. They're teenagers. They're such great people. Like they just want to, I don't know, they're just cool kids. And you're like with a horse. It's really cool. Highly recommend.
I've heard about that, and I'm not even going to take a chance with that, because just like you said, your abs, I got no ab strength, even though I look strong and I do work out my upper body, but my ab strength, gone, zero. If I tilt to the side, I'm falling down.
Yeah, I think that's like why we have the sidewalkers to help with that.
There's like several of them, right?
There's like one person leading the horse.
Right.
And then two sidewalkers, they kind of support your legs. And you might be surprised. Because I don't have upper body strength. I find it like I have to take breaks just blow drying my hair, like just lifting my arm up. But yeah, I don't know.
So there's a time when I was at a Shoppers Drug Mart, like a convenience store, and I was
I love how like the pharmacy to you is a convenience store.
Yes. And I was leaning on the side, and I hate bringing up the scooter, but I was on the scooter and I was leaning on the side, and my hand slipped off. It slipped off, and because I have no ab strength, I kind of went down, and I had to push myself back up from the floor. And I had people there say, "Oh, are you okay?" And for sure, they thought I was drunk. And I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. And I had my headphones on, and I'm like, I should have said I have MS, but I was just like, yeah, I'm fine. I just wanted to get the hell out of there.
I fell getting out of a cab once, and it's same thing. Like everyone kind of rushing around, but I responded with like rage. Like I'm just like, don't look at me. Like I just want to like, just I would get up in my own time, and just like I didn't want the audience or.
This is stuff we need to hear. That you were enraged.
Yeah.
I was at Starbucks once.
Like, where do you put that anger, right? Because, of course, it's like you've fallen and like it's embarrassing, but you're frustrated with your body. Like there's definitely times when I have just like frustration trying to get my shoe on and wanting to hurl it across the room, when it's just like, you can't. And this is why I think like talking about fighting your MS can be problematic, because sometimes I have to just be like, okay, Ardra, like this is your body. chill. Like your legs are just trying to do their job. They don't need any extra bullshit from you. Like, just try to have that grace.
Yeah. I have this very cool thing where even when I'm using my cane or my double crutches, my legs decide that they've no longer wanted to, they're done for the day. And it's like I stepped into a trap door and I like fall through the floor, no matter where I am.
It's the point of no return, and you don't know when it's going to happen.
Yep. So when I leave the house, I leave with a van full of toys. So I have my canes, my crutches, and my wheelchair. They all, like a toddler to the beach, it all comes with me. And I don't know what I'm going to need until I get there.
I mean, that's smart, but it takes a while to figure out, like, no one's telling you, right?
Nope.
It takes a lot of, like, for me, it took a number of being out. I don't drive because of optic neuritis. It took a lot of times of just hitting that point of no return, and then like sitting on a curb, calling my husband a block away and saying, you have to come and get me. I can't get home. And it's like, it takes a while to figure out what your threshold is and how to recognize when it's coming. And then the other thing is that it's a moving target, right? You might, that threshold can be changing all the time.
Yep. Just when you have it figured out, it moves 5 inches to the left, 5 hours to the right. And all of a sudden it's a big question mark again. And you're like, oh, that wasn't supposed to happen. That usually doesn't happen till dinner time. But here I can't walk right now.
Have you ever gone into a store with your cane and then put it aside because you're paying, so you get your wallet out? Or Alex, your wife as well. So puts a cane to the side, pulls out her wallet so she can pays, does her interaction, and then she leaves forgetting the cane. And then they say, your cane, or, you're like, oh, I swear I'm not lying. I really do have MS.
I can't think of one particular instance where she's had to like qualify being disabled, but yeah, no,
I do like if I'm like using the transport chair and I have to like get up out of it to get like to move into a restaurant chair and people are staring. I do like to say, like, it's a miracle.
Yeah. I do exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Nick.
I find like, maybe in like airports, because we try to travel quite a bit, and it's like, yeah, same idea. So transport chair, and then you're walking through security, and then people are kind of like, oh, you got there, it gets like because you butt in line or whatever, right? So you get to the front of the line, which is one of the perks. We've spoken about that before, but like you get there and then she gets up and walks through with her cane, but they have to take her cane away and give her a wooden cane to get through the x-ray machine. So there's all these sort of things, but because she's walking through, then people are kind of give us a side eye, I guess. And you're like, get the fuck out of here. Like,
yeah.
I think Nick goes through that a lot too.
I can walk from the front of my van. I still drive, so I can walk from the front of my van to the back fairly well. But any further than that, I need some kind of assistive device. But usually when I'm getting my wheelchair out and sitting down or in the reverse to go home, people always like, do you really need that? And same thing. I yell, hallelujah, it's a miracle. And I get back in my van.
Yeah.
Oh, people.
As a wheelchair.
This is why we need better storytelling in TV and movies, just because people don't know,
Mm-mm. Absolutely.
Have you guys heard of the show Push? It's a Canadian show. I believe it's Canadian.
Yes.
And I'm not for or against. I'm just asking if you know about it. I know there's a lot of criticism with that show.
I've not heard about it. Sorry.
I haven't seen it yet, so I can't actually weigh in.
Okay.
What is it about?
Friends?
Sorry. Yeah, it's like girls in wheelchairs, right? I think and guys.
Yes.
Yeah. So I haven't seen it, so I can't weigh in, but I will say that when there is so little representation, it is a tremendous amount of pressure on like the one story that's out there to nail it, right? And to like get it right for everyone. And this doesn't always happen.
No.
Yes, I agree with you wholeheartedly about that. I like the show. I like that they're trying something, but you're right. They took a small, certain people who have a lot of money. It's obvious, so that's kind of not realistic to the real world.
There's so many levels of this. We could just have done like a series of like, I'm like tempted to dive into my thoughts on this, but it's too long-winded.
Maybe we'll do that on another
I
episode.
told you guys this would go long. I told you.
No, it's fine. I have so much to talk to Alex about because he has a background similar to mine, and my family not really taking MS seriously. Um, it's just a culture thing.
You
So
guys should do an episode with Alex. I won't be offended.
Yeah, no, I think we've talked about doing a social animals episode before, so we might get on with that then.
definitely, I'm gonna put you on the spot, Ardra. From one podcast duo to another, you have any advice for us? What to do, not to do? Yes,
How long have you guys been doing this?
I think this will be episode 12 or 13. So since February of this year.
Okay, so we have about roughly the same number of episodes under our belts. So I feel like I could be asking you guys the same thing.
My advice would be always be as soul-bearingly honest as possible, because that's people can tell the bullshit from a mile away.
Yeah, I think that's exactly how I feel too. And I think for too long, MS stories have been sugar-coated. And for me, that I feel like that's why my blog resonated from the beginning, was because, I could say, I have this life and don't feel sorry for me, but also, it's not, I don't know. I'm messing up this answer.
No, I think, but the blog,
I hear you.
it's the blog is cool, right? The blog is cool. It's written really well, and it's shockingly honest, and people can relate to that, right? There are a lot of like podcasts, I don't dude bro podcasts where it's just a bunch of guys circle jerking off together and stuff like that. And
Yes.
that's not honest, right? We can tell, and then gets boring because it's the same garbage over and over again. But like the podcast that we do, that Tripping on Air, is based on this honest podcast, and it's fun. It's stressful, but it's super fun, and we get to talk about this thing that doesn't really get a lot of airplay. So yeah, I mean, I don't know, just have fun, basically. I think, like, I have a lot of I'm not a professional by any stretch of the imagination. I just have a lot of content with my podcast, and I think Ardra would ask me, like, what's this, what about that? I'm like, honestly, you're nailing it. So you do more work than I do. So I think, like, it's I think as long as you put the work into it that you think is going to be the best content, then you're going to get the best work, or work that you believe in. And that's what people want to listen to, is stuff that people believe in doing.
I would just tag onto that to say that I don't think you guys need any advice from me at all. And I think it's also super, I think you are filling a niche as two men in the MS space also.
Yes,
So, and you
yeah,
seem
that's
to
a
have
good
like
point. Yeah.
good chemistry and a good relationship. So, I
Thank you.
mean, I look forward to seeing where you guys will take this. I think it's really cool. And I think there's, space for a lot of different perspectives. So, what you have to offer is different than what Alex and I have to offer. And that's great. We're really happy to be on your show.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you.
share
There's
the
room.
space.
Thank
We
you.
share the space.
Oh, yeah,
with
there's
you,
room
which is
for
cool,
everybody.
right? Yeah.
You guys are awesome. We really
what-
appreciate you being on our show today.
Thanks.
That's why every other week we interview folks, and a lot of the folks we interview would not consider themselves podcast worthy. I think, like, we think they are, because I like talking to everybody, but when we talk to them, they're like, "Oh man, I can't believe you asked me to be on your show." And I'm like, why not? You have MS and you have a story, and let's hear it. It's,
Yeah, well, I mean, we all know that there are a million different ways to have MS. And I think it's cool that there's so much that we can lock eyes and relate on. But it's also true that, there are lots and lots of different stories. And too often it's just a couple of big media stories that seem to color the way the world thinks all of MS is supposed to be. So it is
Absolutely.
important to give voice to a lot of different experiences.
Definitely. Awesome. Yeah, no, I totally agree. Awareness, awareness, awareness. That's my thing. It's all about awareness.
It's been awesome having you both on the show. And I want to give you the opportunity to plug anything that you'd like or shout out anything that you would like to. So here's your opportunity. Take your time.
I mean, you can find me at Tripping on Air on socials or my blog. Yeah, I don't know. Alex, like, when's your band playing? Because I feel like
well, the band that I play in is called Howlin' Circus, and they just finished writing the new album, so that'll be out in the fall. We'll be playing some shows, hopefully soon.
What's your band called again?
Howlin' Circus. So I play in the band. I play bass in the live show. But yeah, the band is one dude, this guy called Jaffer, and he's a great guy. Anyways, I'm on socials as Social Animals Podcast. That's my podcast. It's a storytelling, interview-based storytelling podcast about friendship. That's basically how I met Ardra. And again, it's just sharing stories, and whether it's about stories of disability or anything else, it's all there. And so giving people a platform to talk about their what's going on in their lives is it's good. It's good to give people a voice who might not think they have a voice, right? Like you said. But yeah, I think we've got season 2. That's cool that you mentioned it. So I guess it's cool to mention it, but I guess we've got season 2
Awesome.
coming. We're going to start working at it. I guess it should be out in the fall sometime. So that'll be super fun to start thinking about that stuff again too.
Very cool. Well, it was an absolute pleasure having you both on the show. I cannot tell you how much it means to meet fellow media persons like ourselves. We're just two guys having fun. So yeah, thank you so very much for being on our show.
it was our pleasure. It was lovely to meet you both. I often feel like I just want to meet people in person too, so I hope that our paths cross again, and that will get to happen at some point.
Agreed.
For sure. Yes.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys.
Another good show, Terry.
Definitely.
Man, what a good one. And I'll talk to you soon, brother.
For sure. We'll talk soon.
Bye, everyone.
So check us out at 40belowzero.com. That's 4T-below-zero.com. Or feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. Our email address is info@40belowzero.com. Our personal Instagram account are, for Nix, it's NIX_V713. Or for Terry, it's what's_MS. Awesome. Looking forward to hearing from you guys. We'll talk soon.